Well, all right, everybody. Here is the critique for the VIP subscribers. This is the little assignment that I had set out kind of the last of June. So this was basically for July. And this is the posterization assignment. And I just mentioned that if you wanted to do it, that would be great. And I'd put it up on here and just kind of go over a little bit. So this one is mine. And I just did it in a pastel on top of that Hanamula paper. And I just kind of kept it as close to the photograph as I could. The pastels, that value right there, I couldn't quite get it as dark as that, and that didn't really matter. I wanted everybody to kind of go as dark as they could with the material they had at hand. I did end up having to put this was a new pastel white chalk I ended up putting on there, and I think the tricky part for me was trying to get that chalk to jump out of that value right there. And so I would like to have gotten that to jump just a little bit more. Originally I was hoping to use the paper, as you can kind of see the paper underneath all of that, as that second to lightest tone, but it didn't quite work, so I had to kind of hatch over that just a little bit with a gray pastel pencil. So here's Elisa's piece. It looks like Elisa did it in a paint, either probably acrylic or oil. Just did a fantastic job. You know, if you guys were expecting me to show you all kinds of things you did wrong and make you do the project all over again, well, that's not really. I mean, first of all, you guys didn't do anything wrong. Everything that I got was amazing, and I was so happy to see that you guys actually did this. I'm so impressed. But Elisa, you did a great job here. I love that you took the time. You even put these little tiny broken values, or those little slightly lighter values in the hair, and that really actually makes it read exactly like hair. I didn't even bother with that. I just kind of threw in that dark shape, and I like actually the way I noticed that you changed that shape right there from the photograph, and actually I think that was probably smart, because I think it makes that read a little bit stronger as an arm. So really good job, Elisa. And here is Maria's. Maria, again, fantastic job. I love what you did here. It's just exactly what the assignment was all about. I think you mentioned that this is pencil and chalk on that Canson Meton paper, so that's a great choice. Let's zoom in here a little bit. I want to show everybody this wonderful hatching. Look at this great. I love the way you hatched all that in there, Maria. Really, really fun to see. Kind of almost a different texture. So again, just reads so powerful as a face, doesn't it? Just with those three simple value groupings, and you've got yourself a face there. So yeah, beautiful job. You've got all of the very strong 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then you got the other little 4, looks like maybe right there, and then right there. So right on, Maria. That's very, very good. And here is Silver's piece. So Silver just mentioned that in this one right here, the reason it has a brown tone is because he was using leftover paint. So that's brilliant, actually. So there's a perfect use for all that leftover paint, the big piles of brown and gray that we end up with. Again, fantastic. You guys got all your shapes and those values right on. So I hope that's in your head kind of helps kind of solidify maybe the importance of linking as many value shapes together as you can possibly find. Silver also did it in a pencil right here. So another great little study. I love the subtlety that has. That's so beautiful. It almost reminds me of something from the 19th century. Beautiful little drawing. I love your hatches too. I love the way you hatched through that, Silver. And then Silver did one more thing here too. I want to show you guys. So I sent this little Sotomayor painting out as an example to try some value grouping on a painting, on a master copy. And Silver took that and went for it. And man, Silver, I think you really just knocked it out of the park again. And look at this first one up here, right, number 1 right here. Look at these great simplifications of really these dark shapes that are all connected. These these masses that you kept them so strong, and then you even kept that into one, that big shape right there, eliminating, not worrying about any little detail inside of any of those big shapes. And then down here on 2 is a refinement of number 1. So you can see he has all the same shapes in here, but then Silver came in and then just put the detail, or it's not even detail, but just a little more detail, like the eye sockets, a little bit of a face in there. This is exactly how we build artwork. Big simple shapes first, just like on number 1 here, and then on that you can begin to build that on that foundation. Then you begin to build and again, I'm not even really detailed, but you begin to break up the shapes into smaller little shapes, and that kind of shows you, for one, how many things you don't even need in the picture. You probably start to realizing how many things you can eliminate. But look at this great, I take this little example right here. Look at that shape right there. That's the same. See how it's the same shape? But then Silver began to break that up just a little bit. It's a subservient value shift, but it's still inside of that major value shape. And the same thing, that's the same thing with all the features of the face. They're kind of secondary on top of that base. So this was fantastic, you guys. I was so happy to see all of these come in the email. So again, with all these exercises, I know how busy we all get. We're kind of swamped with life and everything going on, and there's certainly never any expectation that anybody does these. But any of these little exercises we do, they don't have to be my exercises. You just choose little exercises from any book or online, and you actually sit down and do them. Take the time to sit down and do them. Really, like how much more seeps into your brain, and you begin to understand these things. And these things like values, value grouping. What we're about to do, I'm going to show you guys here in just a second, is like value control. These are so important. These are the main foundational exercises for drawing and painting, really. And then on the other side of that coin, if we're working with people, we do have to include some anatomy and structure of form on top of that. But this is still just a huge core aspect of everything we do. So if I can get everybody to start seeing these larger, simpler shapes first before you add any detail on that, or add that detail onto those base shapes, it's really going to go a long way in improving your artwork. Okay, so here's our next exercise. We're going to stick with value, but this one's going to lean a little more toward controlling your values and pushing them into different areas of the value scale. And so this has a lot to do with mood. So when I first start students off talking about values, I always start with this one. And this one really has more to do with shape and shape recognition, because we're just working with black and white. And then I kind of go into that posterization or value linking. And then this to me is just kind of a natural progression on value. And so this is value limitation or control. And so today what I have is I drew this image up from the reference, and I'll post that reference. You guys can use that reference, or you can use a reference of your choice. You can choose any image you want. It could be a landscape, still life, a figure, really anything. I would just try to find an image that kind of has a full value range in it, and that's going to force you to go from that full value range in your image, and that just meaning it has maybe pure lights or almost pure whites all the way down to darks, and kind of values all in between all of that. And that's what this image I picked. Just it has darks and lights everywhere, and lots of midtones. I'd just say if you choose to do this, depending on your image, I would just say use 4 analogous values. So you can go anywhere on this value scale, but use 4 values. And again, they have to be analogous, meaning they have to be next to each other. So you could go high key, you could do all midtones, or you could do all darks. So 4 darks, maybe 4 midtones, or 4 lights. And I do think most value scales are in steps of 10. Although in that video from a while back where I did that Jimi Hendrix piece, I know I made an 8-step value scale and I had a 9-step value scale. So you might have to adjust that just a little bit. But when you're doing it, I would just pull up a value scale and mix your, wherever you are, mix your extremes into 2 big piles of paint. Then you can take your value scale away if you want, because you know you're going to be between those two and you can't get outside that. So that's your control. And in this exercise, I'm going to go high key. And so we're going to use value 10 down through 7. And so this pile I have mixed up right here is the same as value 7. So everything I'm going to put on here is going to fall between value 7 and value 10. So again, that's value 7, that's value 10. And I can mix those up anywhere I want to make, I can make more value changes inside that. They don't have to, doesn't have to be 4, but maybe I'll try for 4, maybe 5. I'm not going to be too particular about that. The main thing I'm after is to control limiting the value range. And so one thing this is doing in your brain is it's forcing you to rethink your value structure. And this is a lot like limiting your color. So or saturation. When you can't mix up a color or a saturation, you have to find the next closest thing to that. And so we're doing the same thing, what we're doing that with value. Now in the reference, you'll notice like this headboard behind her, and most of the things that are behind her back here are really dark. I mean, they're value 0. But I'm not going to be able to make that value. So I'm going to have to find, in this case, it's probably just going to be my darkest value. So it's going to be that value 7 is going to go back there. And then in the lightest areas, like these pillows or maybe the backlighting, is going to be value 10. And then I'm going to have to find steps in between those really tight values to put all of these darks and lights and to make this thing read as a 3-dimensional image. So like I said, we're working with mood. Like this would be like if you were doing a landscape. This would be a landscape where it's the sun is just bleaching everything out. So it's a sun-bathed image where there just are no darks. And so this is also connected with atmosphere or aerial perspective. And again, that typically falls into more of a landscape area, but we can do the same thing in an interior. So we'll give this interior scene the feeling that it's just it's bleached by the sun or a really bright light. So let's go ahead and see what I can do with this, and hopefully I can kind of get this thing to read in that super tight value range. Okay, I think we are done with this little exercise. I'll show you though a couple mistakes I made. I mean, my first major error was not mixing up enough of that dark value. I ran out way too soon, so that should have been larger. And the other part of that is I don't think it was quite dark enough. As I got putting it in there, well, I noticed when I mixed up a little bit more in there, I think my value was a little bit between 7 and 6. So when I mixed up a little bit more, I was able to push these darks just a teeny bit more, which really helped. That really helped separate her and the background elements. And you know that was such a that's such a teeny little thing to do, but it really helped. So this exercise really, it's just so important to really get you thinking about the importance of your values, and to pay particular attention to what value you're putting where. And there, one other little thing too, I did kind of push the values a little bit different from the original photograph or the original image to try to make the image read a little bit more. And I think maybe one example was maybe right here in the hair, where I used a little bit darker value than what it shows in the image. And you can see my value is a little closer to this value back here. But if you look at the photograph, it's much lighter. So I finagled that just a little bit, and I did that in a few little other areas to try to make areas kind of stand out. So that's a perfectly legitimate thing to do. But you know, it's just getting you to think about your values and how they all relate to each other. And again, going back to kind of the original exercise, mood. And so this, you know, doing something like this will give you the ability to change the mood in your piece, light or dark. So anyway, I think that's it. So if you guys want to try something like this, like I said, just on any image you have, you can go anywhere in the scale you want. Just make it analogous, and just kind of see kind of what you come up with, and let's see what your results are. All right, thanks for watching.